Hi guys, welcome to Counterpoints. My name is Connor. I'm a science fiction, political, and philosophy nerd, a Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran, and I like breaking down media pieces using my lore and real-world knowledge. So that's what we'll be doing today. This is the episode of the Hammer and Bolter series called The Fangs. If you're interested, come along for the ride. Let's go.
The mountain creaks to its bones. It is a wild night beyond the gates. Is there any other kind on Fenris? No. The world always saves its fury for nights like these. So serious, Njal. Maybe just an unlucky storm. No such thing as luck, Ulrich. Or so he'll tell you. Aye. It is fate that guides the pieces. No. Our hands guide the pieces on this board. And it is fate that guides the aspirants who may yet bring us reinforcements this night. The two are separate. So you always say when you win. Which you rarely do. But perhaps this night, Ekrom, that whelp you chose will not be bringing you an extra fang to play this game tonight. Mark my words. Now, let us play.
So let's pause and break it down. So we see Marine aspirants. So aspirants are human. They are aspiring to become Space Marines, and as a result, they go through trials. Now, some of these trials are varied. For instance, Ragnar Blackmane of the Space Wolves, he was recruited into the Space Wolves after having been mortally wounded in a battle between Viking tribes, and he was a teenager at the time. As a matter of fact, everyone, despite looking like a grown adult in what you're seeing, are supposed to be teenagers because you have to take on Gene Seed as a teenager. Reading some of the physical feats that we're going to see today are going to be impressive for that of an average human being, and Fenris is a tough place. It's an ice world, it's a death world, there's apex predators all over the place, and as a result, the human beings that live there are hardier than most. But we're going to see some stuff that's bordering superhuman, and as a result, I've come up with my own headcanon. Reading Space Wolf lore before the show started, there's the first implant of the Canis Helix, which is the mutated but first gene seed implantation that a aspirant will undergo in order to become a neophyte. And the truth is that he's supposed to activate this after being selected for the trials of Morkai. But realistically, we're going to see some wild shit today, so I'm just going to go ahead and pretend that these guys have some level of Space Marine gene seed. And for the completely uninitiated, a teenager who is selected for warriorhood by Space Marines is implanted with another gene device, basically a combination of biology and high technology, that mutates his body from that of a normal human being, 5'5" to 6'5", and 150 to 300 pounds of normal human being, to being a 7-foot tall genetically engineered freak of nature that becomes a demigod of war, which is the aspiration of humans who try to be Space Marines. We do see the Space Marines that are actually in the keep. We see, them in full armor playing. Well, hey, it's hella cold, so why not? And they're playing their version of chess. I don't know the rules. I didn't look it up, but apparently part of the rules of this chess game is that you can select an aspirant to go ahead and bring you the fang of an apex predator while you're playing as a part of their trials. And if they bring you a fang during the game, then you can use that as a new chess piece in order to try to win. There's a brief philosophical discussion about the interweaving between choice and free will and human endeavor and fate, basically the events that will transpire, the events that are kind of cemented in stone as we make our voyage through time. And the truth is that the Imperium of Man, if it had consigned itself to fate, it would have been dead many times over. So there are psychically sensitive beings who can see the strands of the warp. That's the Rune Priest. He's a psychically sensitive space wolf, and he can see the strands of fate as they kind of come and go and, change the world, and he can kind of direct the world a little bit and use psychic might. Not as well as an Eldar, but he can do it for a human relatively well. Whereas traditional warriors are saying, no, screw that. Fate is something that you meet once you have expended all your energy. But our efforts up until that point matter and can create and modify the fates. So kind of like the dueling philosophical perspectives that are always at the battle of the heart of 40K. So good stuff. Love it. Let's continue on.
Do you think your choice of pup will fare better than your luck upon this board, Slayer? A hardier aspirant I've rarely seen. That one's got bite. He's nothing but an enthusiastic pup. The only safe bet was to run. If you wanted an extra piece to save your hide, that wiry little bastard will outlive us all. We shall see which returns. We must trust to fate that which we cannot see. But enough. There are still moves to be played upon this board. So tell me, Slayer, do the tests still answer? Are they as hard now as they ever were, when we were out on the ice? Aye, the tests still answer. Do you miss it from the fire in your blood? From when you were still young and foolish? The fire is still there. Ask the dead greenskins on Alaric Prime. But it burns more slowly, my friend. Perhaps, but it matters little. I have lived, I have fought. Death will come for me one day, and I care not. It is glorious, my brothers, to die as a son of Rus. There is no greater prize. If they do not come back, then that is the way of this world, and always has been. We are all on our second lives here.
Awesome. Actually, so I find myself repeatedly disappointed by Hammer and Bolter because I'm always, wanting, more stuff, more animations, more battles, more lore, more this, more that. But I got to say, like, second and third viewings can be a little bit more rewarding because you can see some of the deeper threads that you can enjoy a little bit more. So, for instance, Space Marines drink ale. They're the only Space Marines that I know of, except for maybe successor chapters, that have purposefully created a alcoholic beverage with the express purpose of getting intoxicated. Space Marines, generally speaking, are stoic super warriors that are not interested in the pursuits of humans, whereas Space Wolves in particular seem to love the fraternal aspect and the rough and tumble fighting aspect of their warrior culture that getting wasted and fighting each other is such an integral part of Fenrisian culture, because they come from the planet Fenris, that they even decided to continue on that tradition into their second lives as Space Marines, as they said. So Space Marines, to the current lore, unless you become a Chaos Space Marine and start worshiping Slanesh, to our knowledge, they are asexual. They are not interested in sex and don't seem to have any there's no definitive lore saying that they can't procreate. There's no definitive lore saying that they can't procreate with humans, but it would kind of be like the Mountain and his girlfriend. That would kind of be like the physical difference between a Space Marine and a normal human being. For those of you who don't know who I'm referring to, the Mountain from Game of Thrones, the 8-foot tall, 300-pound, Scandinavian bodybuilder, that would pretty much be the physical relationship between a Space Marine and a normal human being. And so difficult to think about. So they've made them asexual for now. So we actually have no idea specifically whether or not Space Marines can have families or anything like that. But without the pursuit of life and new life, there is the pursuit of, for the Space Wolves anyways, intoxication and violence. And when you can't have one, might as well make up for it with the other. So they're discussing the three aspirants. There's the whelp, the hardy aspirant, and the runt. So whelp is just a puppy, right? Whelping. That's the sound that they make. The hardy, this guy's already tough as nails. So they're all betting on the different things that they think will result in success. So the whelp being standard, average, pup. The hardy aspirant being already tough as nails, but as critiqued by one of the Space Marines, he's so ambitious that can be a dangerous thing to himself. And then the runt, where the comment is the clear bet was on the runt, he's going to outlive us all. Being a runt on Fenris is a death sentence. So being smaller, being slower is a death sentence. So if you're smaller or slower, and that's a liability, then one, you better get fast quick, and two, you need to be smarter. And so that's why that Space Marine decided to make the bet that he did. So, for me, in my headcanon, okay, I mentioned that in my headcanon, these aspirants already have the Canis Helix. I don't care if some Space Wolf barges in and say, no, Connor, they don't do it until the trial of Mordecai, and it's... I don't care. I don't care, because this is some Tarzan shit, okay? Human beings don't jump from tree to tree to tree while maintaining perfect balance, all right? We're not gorillas or orangutans or anything like that, even if we're descended from gorillas or orangutans. And I don't care if you're 1,000-year-old space Vikings on the planets of Fenris and you've had to fend off cold winters. You're not going to learn this skill unless you're genetically enhanced and capable of using strength and balance, not that of normal humans. If you can find me a tree runner, a tree-running human being on this planet, some Amazon deep forest people, show me that shit, because otherwise I'm just going to go ahead and pretend that these people are already augmented, which is why they're pulling off the physical feats that they're pulling off. So are the tests as hard as you ever were? This was an interesting thing coming from like a Marine and law enforcement perspective. There's a rose-tinted glasses from a veteran's perspective, where you always want to pretend that you were the hardest generation. So in my generation, the Global War on Terror generation, we weren't able to say that because there were things that were obviously harder from people who came before us. They had to maintain a higher standard of uniform. They had to spit shine their boots, literally like shine and maintain their boots. They had to do a bunch of really, what from my perspective would be unnecessary drill and discipline things that I don't think necessarily make you a better warrior, but I would see it as more of a pain in the ass, and you could take like a pride from that culture. But then conversely, the Global War on Terror generation, basically the early 2000s onward, they also got a lot of respect from the 90s generation Marines, because while they had to deal with more disciplinary bullshit, there was very limited opportunities to deploy. So they admired the younger generation, while maybe being a little bit less disciplined or a little bit less crazy or a little bit less worldly than they were, because it was like a video game generation. They still respected the fact that we volunteered during a time of war, meaning that there was a small but real chance that we could be hurt or killed. So while shit-talking us generationally, they also shared that they respected us for coming on during a time of war. which some of them didn't. They volunteered during the time of peace, and some of them, not trying to knock anybody, but they didn't expect to deploy because they were in a relatively stable decade. So, do you miss your youth? Is the fire still there? This, that, the other. It burns more slowly. Yeah, sure. Well, one of the things that I read while I was checking out the Canis Helix was the fact that every Space Wolf, during the trials later on, after they activate the Canis Helix by drinking a potion. So in my head canon, I'm saying they already have the Canis Helix, but they're activating it by drinking this potion before being dumped out into the wilderness. They basically have to control their feral instincts. And the younger they are, the harder they can be to control. And if they don't control their feral instincts, they basically become werewolves known as wolfen, where they're genetically engineered super freaks that are half human, half space marine, half space wolf. And they take on very animalistic features and remain wild animals that are out in the wild that can be called into action on rare occasion where they're needed. But it's glorious to die a son of Russ. And basically, even if the aspirants meet their fate, that's actually one of the cooler things about the 40K universe is the level of respect and reverence that's paid to people who even try to be Space Marines. In some universes, if you try and fail something, they're going to shit talk you. And in the Horus Heresy series, there are failed aspirants that are shit talked a little bit because they become chapter serfs. They become servants of the chapter, so some of the Space Marines look down on them. But the smarter and more noble Space Marines are like, no, they tried, they failed, but they were injured or killed, and they dedicated their life to the chapter. They are worthy of our respect and veneration because even though they didn't attain the rank, they still pursued something holy. And so that kind of respect and reverence is what keeps the Imperium going. So, yeah, I think that's enough lore for now. Let's keep it moving.
Hell's teeth. I may be out for now, but I can still claw back a victory when my whelp returns with a fresh piece. It was a poor move, brother. Ugh, I felt it in my bones. This damned cold. This damned storm. Not my night. Then you should not have wagered on it so heavily. Why are you always so damned gloomy? Have another drink. Crack a smile. He won't drink too much. He seeks to win. And you'll do your utmost to stop me. Aye. Even you can't foresee everything. None of us here knows how our chosen ones fare in the wilds. Now, play!
All right, so going back to the bat guy, he's hunting an apex predator. Lucky there's a branch, so as he's falling the first time and he gets knocked off, no offense, but the only way that you're catching a branch and then doing a 30-yard vault onto the back of like a, I don't know, a 600-pound bat is if you're gene enhanced. I don't care. Space Wolf apologists, go ahead and cope in my comments, okay? Heck, like hell no, okay? No way are you pulling that off unless you're some level of genetic enhanced. So again, headcanon, he's already got the Canis Helix. He just hasn't activated it for the Trials of Mordecai yet, but he launches himself at the bat, and then the bat plays dead after getting gutted pretty hard, and then ends up gutting him and having him fall to the rocks. That guy's down for the count, and that was our hardy Marine. So if I remember correctly, the first one was the Whelp. So I think that's the Space Marine in the black armor. The Rune Priest was the hardy one, and then the redhead Space Marine had his bet on the Runt. So we still have the Runt and the Whelp in the running. So the Rune Priests, I think if I remember correctly, the Rune Priest guy is already out. So there's no wolves on Fenris is a phrase that I've heard and probably should have researched before starting this, but if I remember my osmosis from my viewings of Space Wolf lore material, is the fact that there was no indigenous canine species on Fenris until human colonization. And similar to a movie with Dennis Quaid, I forget what it's called, but there's like a horror movie with Dennis Quaid where humans are traveling through space and they have gene therapy, basically to modify themselves once they reach the planet so they can quickly evolve to the environment of the planet. The colonists of Fenris, the first human colonists of Fenris, had a similar product with them, and as a result, they evolved into the wolves of Fenris, which are, like 1,200-pound canine dire wolves. So the wolf spot. So while there might not be any indigenous wolves, there sure as hell are human-descended Fenrisian wolves, which are fierce, monstrous beasts that only modern humans would only be able to understand as wolves. So Wolf already sees him, takes him out. They have a battle, fight over the over the battle axe. Actually, it manages to defeat the beast solidly by impaling its head on the rock after they fall into the water, but then he drowns. So, let's see how the remainder of the series plays out.
So, another piece down. I didn't see that move. Didn't see it at all. Not all the pieces are accounted for yet. Our aspirants might yet change the outcome in our favor. There's only one winner now. It has not been a lucky night. Not for any of us, it seems.
So the runt was trying to take on the polar bear, and I think it actually is a cool little detail that he uses cover. So first he confronts the animal because he has to hunt it, he has to kill it, he has a sword, and despite being small in stature, he's looking for an apex predator in order to claim its fang. But he runs away at first as a feint in order to get away from the polar bear because he can't take it on head for head. He's not a full-fledged space marine in power armor with a bolter and a power weapon right now. He's an aspirant that's maybe been given a single genetic enhancement. And so he basically dives behind a rock and then does score a internal organ, stab before being knocked off into a smaller part of the cave and continuing the attack. Now, the cool thing about that attack is even if that bear is not dead yet, if you had punctured a vital organ and caused internal bleeding, then there is a strong chance that animal would go down. And what you see through the runt's efforts is not a direct confrontation with the animal, but actually using his environment and the situation to his betterment. Maybe a more aggressive Space Marine aspirant, while the polar bear was coming down for the attack, would have gone for his weapon and as a result been killed in that moment. But the runt actually rolls away, gets an improvised weapon, and then steals one of the bear's faculties by jabbing it in the eye with an improvised weapon. So even while he's engaging in violence, he's engaged in what do I use in order to maintain my well-being while still furthering the goal, which is killing this apex predator. And he's doing so in a very intelligent, if violent way to do so that is less confrontational than his other two aspirants. And he succeeds temporarily because he's made a mistake, which is maintaining your situational awareness while trying to achieve your goal. Now, the modern military, we got battle buddies, we got friends, we got technology, we got night vision goggles, we have friendly radar, this, that, the other. In this universe, they're just trying to prove that they have what it takes in order to be a space marine. That aspirant very clearly did. He killed the apex predator and he took the fang, but now he's proven that he has the human will to make his will manifest that makes him a space marine. But now fate, the dual force in this universe, is coming to rob him of that victory. And because he didn't have the situational awareness and because he got knocked further into the cave, he probably only killed a female Fenrisian bear, and actually a male Fenrisian bear takes him out relatively easily, ripping out his arm, throwing him across the cave, and collapsing rocks on top of his head. Another tally that I would like to make for the argument that these aspirants are relatively gene enhanced before going on this trial is the fact that, one, they're running around the Fenrisian winter without any protection, so most humans would be dead. That's number one. Number two, once that aspirant gets his arm ripped out, he does bleed a decent chunk from that, but then it coagulates very quickly. There's actually arteries inside the arm, where the arms and the legs, where if you rip these guys out, they're difficult to pinch and repair. You would have to use a tourniquet in order to stop the bleeding. Whereas with this aspirant, he actually stops bleeding by the time he gets crushed by rock. So, again, even if there's Space Wolf commenters seething in the comments about, oh, you don't take, the Canis Helix until the Trials of Mordecai, I don't care, okay? In my headcanon, these are relatively gene-enhanced aspirants. It's the only thing that makes sense based off of what they're physically capable of. But, he clots, he gets collapsed. He had what it takes to be a Space Marine, but because of the dueling nature of fate, he will not become a Space Marine. He dies in that cave trying to become a son of Russ.
But it is not yet over. Maybe you should learn when to quit, Rune Priest. Do you think your choice of pup will still bring you an extra piece? On some nights, none succeed. Aye, that can be true. But not this night. But you come here late, aspirant. We might have ended this already. Do you have it? A fine piece. All Father only knows what you took that from, Pop. Go now. Rest. Your work this night is done. Tomorrow, the trial of Mordecai shall truly begin. And so you have it, Rune Priest. The game is yours. Aye, so it is.
All right. Not too bad, not too shabby, all right? Some nights doesn't succeed. Aye, but that's not this night. Well, apparently I got them mixed up. I thought that was the Ginger's aspirant. But, hey, it is what... Oh, no. The Ginger bet on the runt. That's what it was. Okay. I remember. All right, fair. Anyways, so Rune Priest can psychically, they can sense what's going on. So he at least sensed that one of the aspirants was returning to the keep and had won their victory. And, there's a certain amount of willpower that can affect the Warhammer 40k universe. So if you're sensitive psychically, then you can will yourself into a new position, right? So you could heal your wounds, this, that, the other, kind of use your psychic might in order to augment your physical might. But if these aspirants had received the Canis Helix, there are several physiological advantages that could have been given to them that would have allowed him to survive drowning. So, healing, number one. Space Marines have accelerated healing, not to be like instantaneous, but to be pretty gosh darn good. Like, you can take a battle wound, and your stuff will already be clotting, closing, and healing as you're continuing the fight. Then there's a second heart, and I'm sure a whole bunch of backup neurological systems that would allow you to reactivate as long as you had enough physiological matter inside you in order to continue functioning, which could have helped this aspirant survive. Finally, if you're grievously wounded, the body can enter what's like a coma-like state where it'll conserve all its resources, and Space Marines have been known to survive decades or even centuries lost in space in their vacuum-sealed suits, healing and in a coma-like state before being recovered and being able to be returned to service. So, impressive. Then, finally, I think just voicing a little bit of frustration, just teeny-tiny little bit of frustration. Obviously, what I want to see is full-blown Space Marines going up against orcs and slicing them to pieces in their fancy Primaris armor with the bolter. And we could go back to the garden in the ghosts or ghosts in the garden or whatever the Eldar episode was. But the janky animation was so frustrating that it wasn't as enjoyable watching my favorite heroes duke it out in hyper-violence. So, Games Workshop, kicking rear end on the lore. Awesome. Appreciate it. Love it. Thank you so much. Kicking rear end in at least some of these products where I feel like I'm getting to enjoy the world that I love so much. But what we're missing is that full-throated, screaming violence like, I hate to say it, Siame Peterson, the creator of Astartes, gave us. He was able to give us lore, continuity, and violence all at the same time. And the fact that you've been in charge of the IP for this long, and it takes an outsider to create that quality of product, and then we're left with like all these things that are edging around what we want to see, but not quite what we want to see, that's frustrating. That's very frustrating. But say lovey. And I still enjoy this universe, and I still love it, and I still have, 3,000 points of Death Watch, of which 2,900 points are painted. So what are you going to do? You've gotten hundreds, if not thousands of dollars from me, so it is what it is. So if you enjoyed this, please check out the other stuff. There's plenty. There's so much more on this channel that you're not even bothering to check out, okay? Number one, there's the Warhammer playlist. So there's plenty of breakdowns of other animations on this channel just like this. Go ahead and check out the politics playlist. If you enjoy debating about politics, I identify as center, center, right, and I fight lefties and I fight far righties. And then also, if you just enjoy violence in general, I've broken down Fury, Full Metal Jacket, and End of Watch from a military perspective, military and law enforcement veterans perspective. So if you enjoy violence in general, there's plenty of other stuff for you to check out. And then I also try to do personal development and solo rant series and all that kind of stuff. But basically what I'm saying is there's buttloads of content for you to consume. So just view this as an advertisement. I brought you here so you could check out the rest of the product. Like, subscribe, dislike, comment, all that YouTube nonsense. Go to patreon.com/counterpoints. Support the channel. Become a YouTube member. Go to Twitch between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. on Fridays and become a subscriber over there. Leave us super chats and donos and all that kind of stuff so we can grow the channel so eventually we can do this full time. I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to check this out. I would very much like it if you did any of the things that I just highlighted, and I'm going to catch you in the next one.